I thought it was time to polish up my skills on polishing. So clay attention, because I'm going to shine some light on a way to make sanding your resin or dice 10 times faster. It turns out Ghost had it right and all you need is a pottery wheel and some TLC. So tell me if these dice are dead or alive, because I'm going to spin them right round. Like a record, baby. Darkmoon Laura and some of the other amazing dice makers from the Critical Convergence live stream that I hosted a while back turned me on to using a pottery wheel to polish and sand my dice far faster. Now, they sell their dice, so they gotta make a lot of them really quick, so I kinda trusted their opinion on this one, and boy were they right. But I'm gonna make some dice to sand because it wouldn't be a video of mine without making some dice in it, and I'm gonna use the dice molds that I showed how to make in a previous video, which I'll link up in the top right now. Now, I'm making dice to show this off, but you can do this with any resin. I just happen to like making dice on my channel. So I have these dice molds all taped up so that no resin comes out, and I'm going to use Art and Glow resin. It's a casting resin that is a 1:1 by volume mixture. I'm using about 50 milliliters of it here. After I mix it up for about 5 minutes, I mix it into 2 separate cups. I leave about 1/3 in one cup and 2/3 in another, because we're going to do some cool ratio stuff here. I put in a little bit of glitter in the one that I'm going to keep clear, because why wouldn't I? And the piece de resistance that we're using for this one is this purple foil stuff. It's a lot like gold leaf foil, except it's purple. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm a more is more guy, so I put a decent amount in there, but you know, that just didn't work for me. I even needed a little bit more purple foil in there because I really want this to be kind of the centerpiece of these dice that I'm going to create. And in the second one, we're going to make this the opaque version. We want more of the transparent, which we're going to do with the foil, and less of the opaque, so that's the one we're using the 1/3 bit of resin. I'm mixing up black alcohol ink and silver, and I do a big oops here and put way too much silver. It kind of falls all in there. I wanted this to be more of black than silver, but it turned out to be silver. But you can fix that in a way by turning it into a gunmetal silver by adding more black alcohol ink. And by the time it's all mixed up and good to go, because of the little bit of green in the alcohol ink, it makes a solid gunmetal color, which was really kind of a happy accident. I was happy with how that turned out. Normally I say pipettes are optional, it's just how I like to put the resin in, but for this technique I'd say they're almost required for how we're going to kind of mix the colors. I put more of the transparent color than the opaque. This is kind of a Terminator-y metal color, and if I were to put an equal amount, it would completely take over the transparency, and it would just turn into a gunmetal dice, which, I mean, if you're looking for that, good, but that's not what we're going for here. We're looking for kind of like a craggy landscape. So after I put all of the resin in there, I'm going to set my resin in the pressure pot for 24 hours while the resin cures. That way I have no bubbles in my dice, and the transparency is completely transparent. We're going to use that set and the blue set that I used in my previous failed video, and polish them on this behemoth. I really thought this thing was going to be like maybe a foot by foot tall, but this thing is huge. It takes up my entire desk space, so I'm probably going to use it under the desk moving forward. So you're probably wondering why a pottery wheel is so good for sanding resin. First off, it's got this metal plate on the top, and if it's turned on, you can either use it forward or backwards, and it spins super fast or slow. It's got this little knob here to determine the speed, and you can go from slow to really fast either with your foot or putting your hand on the red knob and pushing it forward. It goes super duper fast, but it stays extremely level, which is important for pottery and also important for sanding, so we're just going to use it for our purposes. The only downside is it has these little metal ridges, which is bad for sanding, but you can fix that with some glass. I ordered this thing online and it said it had a 9-inch build plate, and it's not the first time somebody's used a ruler to determine that somebody else lied about inches, but in this case it was actually bigger than what was talked about. We can actually use a glass plate in the same way that we normally do for sanding. Glass is extremely level, and so we can get really, really nice corners on our dice or any resin that we're polishing without worrying about an uneven surface messing up our polishing game and all that time we spent into it, because once you take something away, you're not going to be able to get it back, so it's better to have this nice prepped surface. You can get just a square glass plane, but I do worry about those corners hitting me accidentally as I'm sanding. I'm going to use Zona papers on this bad boy because it gives the best polish I can find for resin. You can also use micro mesh or any other sand that you want. It will stick on here just fine with some painter's tape, which is waterproof, so I don't have to worry about it coming off as I'm sanding. Speaking of which, it also has this tub in the back, which is fantastic because I can just take water and do wet sanding on this thing. Any excess water is going to fly off into this tub because that's what you do for pottery. And so pottery and resin sanding and dice making actually kind of go a lot more hand in hand than I originally thought. Now to the 2 dice sets that we're going to use. Because I molded them with sprues, they've got this giant little mark here that you have to actually sand down, or else you're going to have some ugly looking dice. So we're going to use those blue sets that I mentioned before, and fresh out of the pressure pot, this awesome purple and silver set. It came out just way better than I expected. This is a gift for a friend coming up, and I'm just super excited with how they look. I might make a couple of these sets with some colored foil because I need to experiment more with that. Just look at how good this is. But they've got those sprue marks, so we need to get them sanded up and see what we can get out of these dice. So I'm going to take the first set of Zona papers here and zoom in so that you can see the spinning all nice and close. You can see it's not going terribly fast. I wanted to practice with this before I just went buck wild with it, but I was surprised at actually how easy this is to do. It's because it's so dang level and the dice are generally trying to be as flat as they possibly can, you just kind of have to set it on there. This clip right here is real time how long I left it on those Zona papers. So maybe about 8 seconds, and it was sanded and good to go. You can see here I'm trying to show the angle that none of the corners really went away. It's so level that it's probably better than the way I try and sand it, which is like this. All in all, this is fantastic. I was very pleased and excited by the first result that I got, so I decided, all right, let's go again. Let's try it with this D4 here and see what else I can get. Same exact results. I was really scared that the D4 of all of them, because it's just this big triangle, you would see a lot of the corners start to disappear, but I didn't. As I went through all of the dice, I didn't see any of the corners disappear. It was just as good as my normal sanding method. Now that could mean that my sanding method of doing kind of the zigzags back and forth is not all that great, but you can see by comparison here, this face and the other face here with this one that was sanded, they look exactly the same. So I moved on to the other set of dice and did the exact same thing. I held it on there for maybe about 10 seconds just to be sure. And then once that paper was done, I moved on up a grit to the next one, put some water on it so that it was wet sanding as I went through, bada bing, bada boom, rinse and repeat as I go through these. I found that the best way to do it was to go a one whole circle around, take about 10 seconds to do so, and it was sanded and good to go, as long as you were going at about max speed. And then I took one grit off, put a new grit on, took one grit off, put a new grit on until I was at the final grit, which is 1 micron thick, and then it was just as sanded as all the rest of the sides. This is a super duper clear die now, and I love it. This is absolutely my favorite. This machine is so quiet, which I was not expecting. It's quieter than the AC in my house, so it's just wonderful, and it's all kind of idle. I had to be very much more intensive with the way I sanded before, but now this is absolutely beautiful. First of all, doesn't that dice just look another Italian finger kiss? It just looks good. But I can idly do this while watching TV because this is not at all something I have to pay too much attention to. It's very, very quiet. I am in love, and this is how I'm doing it from now on. That's essentially what the video was about, but I know you want to see some completed dice because I do too, but the Pottery Wheel is great. Get it, it's expensive, but if you're making a lot of dice, it's totally worth it. I got some color shifting blue to purple paint for the purple and silver dice here. You can see that it is just a nice looking color. I poured out a big glob of it so that I could put it all over the die, and this D6 looks really, really good with it on there, but I will say color shifting paint is not all that great in small pockets like this. It doesn't have a lot of room to actually see the different colors. It just kind of looks like a glittery pink more than it does a pinkish blue, but oh my gosh, is that not just a fantastic, no more Italian finger kisses, though I really want to, is that not just a fantastic looking D6 there? I was very, very pleased, and the polish on it is so dang good, and it was so quick. I could knock out 6 sets in maybe an hour or two now with this new setup. So I went ahead and painted up the D20. It also looked phenomenal. I've got a little bit of stuff to clean up with some alcohol just because I go a little crazy with the paint before I wipe it off. But for the second set, I wanted to do a themed set with the blue one because it's kind of a crystal color. I also added gold and silver for the best Pokemon generation, Generation 2, which is silver, crystal, and gold. So I wanted to have a crystal dice with some gold and silver on there, and I did my new technique where I put kind of a two-tone inking on them with both gold and silver, and it just looks so dang good. I've got the Dice Goblin logo on there where he's silver holding a gold die, and the rest of them have kind of a mix between gold and silver on some of the numbers, or one number is silver, one number is gold. It's just neato, and it's an awesome themed Pokemon set and an homage to my favorite generation of Pokemon. I've probably played those games 50 times, if not more. Now, as I say a quick thank you to the patrons who help support this channel, let's do some close-ups of these dice because they are just so dang good that they deserve it. It's got that nice silvery gold look to it, as well as that kind of shining crystal in the background. That set I was incredibly happy with, but then this is a perfect gift for my friend. He's going to be playing a Shatter Kai Arcane Trickster Rogue, and he's got this kind of purple theme about it, and then the kind of silver gunmetal of the Rogue, I think, is a perfect flavor for his Rogue that is just going to knock this out of this park. He has not seen these, and he does not know what he's getting color-wise, so I think this is a fitting gift to give to him as a complete surprise, because I like them, and I want to keep them, so I definitely am going to make some more, maybe some red or some blue foil ones like that in the future. It was fun to play around with transparency and foil along with an opaque kind of silver set, so it was just phenomenal. But the real hero here in this video is, of course, this pottery wheel, because I will be using it to make my life far, far easier in the months and years to come, and it will just save me a ton of time. You have no idea. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you might want to learn how to make your own dice or any other sort of tabletop DIY things. That's kind of what we do here on the channel, and I think we have a good time while we're doing it. We might not do it great, but we learn from it every single time. I hope that you have a fantastic day. However, I do want you to see what happens when you have far too many dice on your pottery wheel and you turn your speed up to maximum. Okay, let's just... Oh God.